Good day and welcome to lesson 2 in our study of the book of Jonah. We're going to continue in the book of Jonah chapter 1 and go from verse 4 to verses 10. In the last lesson we saw how Jonah was trying to run away from God, even though that's really impossible to do. So he went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish, and he boarded that ship. Now, sometimes people feel that because things fall into place, that it's really providence telling them that this is the right thing to do. Here was Jonah trying to get away from God, trying to flee from God's presence. He goes down to the port and finds a ship already there. He has the fare for that ship. The ship is able to take him on board and is actually going to the place farthest known at that time on earth, Tarshish. So he finds the fact that all these things come together. Perhaps this was God's plan for him to leave after all. This was his feeling. So Jonah boards this ship going to Tarshish. And it said, the Lord sent a great wind in the sea, and there was a mighty tempest in the sea, so that the ship was about to be broken up. So it wasn't long after the ship left port that things went awry. That the storm came. God sent a storm because Jonah was trying to escape from God. So it said, a great tempest, the Lord sent a great wind to battle the ship to the point that it was in danger of breaking up and breaking apart. And as a result of this, everybody on the ship became very frightened. It says the mariners were afraid, and every man cried out to his God, and threw the cargo that was in the ship into the sea. We see the people on the ship trying to right things themselves by emptying the ship from its cargo. Regardless of what value the cargo had, these people were trying to lighten the load, and it made no difference to them at that time whose cargo it was, where it was bound for, or the cost of it. They just wanted to get rid of it. And this often happens to us. We try to fix things. When things go wrong, we try to fix things ourselves by doing what we can, not knowing that it's actually in God's hands to do what is really needed to correct problems. And they said these people threw everything over, the cargo over, and every man cried out to his God. Every man cried out to his God, implying that every man on that ship had a God, had a personal God or a God whom they believed in, and every man cried out to him. There were no apparent atheists among the crew at that time. Every man cried out to his God, as well as throwing the cargo overboard. Every man, that is, except Jonah. Jonah had gone down into the lowest part of the ship, had lain down, and was fast asleep. There's an indication here that every man prays to their God, more so than those who believe in the true God, Jehovah. Many people will pray many times a day to gods who are actually false, where those people who believe in the true God often don't pray at all. And this is part of the idea of this passage, that the mariners who were afraid prayed to the multiplicity of gods that they believed in, none of whom were real, whereas Jonah, who believed in the true God, was not praying. He was down in the hole, fast asleep. And his captain came to him and said to him, "What do you mean, sleeper? Arise, call on your God. Perhaps your God will consider us so that we may not perish." Even the captain knew there was something wrong, that their own prayers were not accomplishing anything, that perhaps this one God of Jonah would solve the problem. And they said to one another, "Come, let us cast lots, that we may know for whose cause this trouble has come upon us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Casting lots was a way in those days for people to try to determine what the gods meant, what the gods wanted them to do, what the gods had in store for them. So casting lots was something which was done in many cultures, in many religions in those days. And they believed that the lots proved and would go to and point out the will of the gods. And the Hebrews did the same thing. They also cast lots for the same type of purpose. So these people casting lots was not unusual. And apparently God arranged for the lot to fall on Jonah because he was the one who actually was the cause of the storm and the tempest. So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, "Please tell us, for whose cause is this trouble upon you? What is your occupation, and where do you come from? What is your country, and of what people are you?" Because all the mariners were wondering who this man was, who now came aboard their ship and apparently brought this trouble to them. Why was he here? Why was he doing this? Why was he causing this disturbance? And Jonah said to them, "I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." Jonah confessed that he knew God. He confessed that he said he feared God. He confessed that he was a child of God, but yet he was also running away from God at the same time. Now the whole point of this part of the story is that God sent the tempest as a type of punishment, a type of correction for Jonah because of what Jonah was doing in disobeying God's direction to arise and go to Nineveh. So Jonah fleeing in the opposite direction was contrary to God's will. We all flee in the wrong direction at times, contrary to what we know God's will for our life is. The other thing is that many people prayed to gods who were false, whereas Jonah, believing in the true God, fell asleep. And the point is here is that we, all of us, tend to fall asleep at times when we shouldn't. And according to David Guzik's commentary, he puts it this way: the nature of Jonah's sleep is instructive, and too much like the sleep of the careless Christian. Jonah slept in a place where he hoped no one would see him or disturb him. Sleeping Christians like to hide out among the church. Jonah slept in a place where he could not help with the work that needed to be done. Sleeping Christians stay away from the work of the Lord. Jonah slept while there was a prayer meeting up on the deck. The sleeping Christians don't like prayer meetings. Jonah slept and had no idea of the problems around him. The sleeping Christians often don't know what is really going on. Jonah slept when he was in great danger. Sleeping Christians are in danger but don't know it. And Jonah slept while the heathen needed him. The sleeping Christians snooze on while the world needs their message and testimony. And some people who do sleep, who are called sleeping Christians, protest that they're not asleep at all. We talk about Jesus, they say, but you can talk in your sleep. We have a passion for Jesus. I just wept in worship, but you can cry in your sleep. We have a walk for Jesus, but you can walk in your sleep. We have joy and rejoice in Jesus, but you can laugh in your sleep. We think about Jesus all the time, but you can think when you are asleep. We call it dreaming. So the point of this is to show how Jonah, being the type of man he was, professing to fear God, professing to be a follower of God, was asleep. He slept through all the turmoil and the tumult and the tempest that raged around him while he was in the ship. But the pagans, the people who believed in false gods, were praying and trying to do something. This is so similar to what the world seems to be in right at the moment. So Jonah believed that he was a person who feared God, designated him as the God of heaven, who made the sea and dry land. But he still slept. When the ship needed him, he was still running away from the God he professed to fear. He was still disobeying the God he was supposed to be following. It is very similar to many of us today. So Jonah is asleep in the bottom of the ship while all this is going on. He's asleep while the seas are raging around him. The men have tossed lots and found out that Jonah was the cause of the problem. And this is going to go on into the next part of chapter 1 as we get into it next week. So, thanks for watching this. I hope this was of some interest to you. And we will carry on with Jonah's tale next week as we continue on in chapter 1. But that's all for tonight. Bye for now, and thanks for watching.